Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How
And
you
good
doing, Paul?
morning. Hey, I'm good. Good morning to people who are in the US, because I always realize we say good afternoon. And
That's true.
And good evening to people who are over to the east of us here in the UK, and it may be evening time for them. So, and yeah, if you're up in the middle of the night watching this, then we appreciate it. But I would say to you, please go back to bed and just watch the catch up.
It's not that
It's not that. No,
That's
like yeah. I mean, if you feel that your dreams are not as important as seeing me and Pete, then please go see a doctor.
There's nothing we can do about that.
No. How's Peter?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, just it's been a busy week. I've been playing with trying to get Agentforce working on a Scratch org.
Ooh, how's that
which
been?
People say that it's supposed to work, and some of the documentation and the social posts seem to suggest that you could do that with developer edition org. But near as I can tell, that would have to be a partner developer edition org, not
I imagine so. Yes, not
your
not a
average
regular developer.
everyday developer.salesforce.com/signup developer edition org. But that's not clearly stated anywhere. So, but that's okay. Like, that's why you bang on things and try things out, right? So, yeah.
I would say that the only consistent thing I have found in all the time with Salesforce is that the licensing and what is in what editions and when can be very. It's a dark art.
Yeah. And I mean, I was spoiled for 12 years. I would just call up the product manager who would just turn on the permission in the org that I needed, and it would work fine. So it's different out here,
in the wilderness. There was someone the other week who put a post up on LinkedIn, and I featured it in the Cloud Bytes weekly newsletter it was a good joke post. And I can't remember who. I want to say it was Bill Greenshaw, but it might not have been. But it was someone put out a post where it was like a new Salesforce certification that was Salesforce licensing expert. Or Salesforce licensing consultant, and basically the job was you had to understand what each of the licenses meant and what you actually got with it.
That'd be a pretty cush job, but I agree it would be a huge knowledge base to try and actually keep track of. So yeah,
I feel like the thing is, I feel like somewhere in Salesforce there's just a spreadsheet with it in. I don't think it's stored in. It's either NoSQL data, like in just some blob somewhere, or it's in a spreadsheet, and it's definitely not in any structured data format.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
who knows? Yeah. Anyway, so that's been kind of my most recent foray into playing around with some Salesforce functionality. And then I was at the London Developers Group last night. Really great talks. Rob Cowell, and the other fellow's name was Ankit, I believe. So Rob did a talk on exception handling, error handling, so we had kind of some good breakdowns of what the error hierarchy is, or the exception hierarchy rather, in the Apex object model, and how to use that, and some advice on frameworks and that sort of thing. So that was really good. And then the other one was how to build Lightning Web Components for field service Lightning, specifically to use offline. So that was pretty cool. As well.
Have you ever touched field service Lightning?
I've not.
It is probably the product that when I've played around with it, I am most impressed by, and also least ever want to work with. Because there is I was fortunate enough that when I was working in a previous consultancy many years ago, when they announced it, it had its first name, whatever it was. I was on like the launch training in the UK
Okay.
because we were proposing it for a customer. And the coolest thing in there is that effectively there is some piece of Amazon kit in the background they've built that solves the traveling salesman problem, because that
Right.
is what
Okay.
routing is. Like whenever you're dealing with routing of a van as an Amazon delivery driver, or like, you
Right.
know, you got 10 appointments to go, what's the optimal route? It's a traveling salesman problem. Which for those who aren't as much of a math nerd as I am, is very, very tough. It's one of those problems that's considered non-polynomial and not polynomial. So that is, as you add more nodes, the complexity increases exponentially rather than linearly. And it means that you spend infinite amounts of time doing it. So it's a very, very cool bit of tech on that. The UI was really slick and nice. It was like the best looking Salesforce UI at the time, things like that. But every time I've ever used it, I just wanted to cry because it's just a very complex beast. And like, there's a partner that I know in the UK that specializes in it. If I ever go anywhere near it, I am immediately like, "Hey, I'm going to
Calling
yeah,
you.
like, yeah. I will give like when I was working running a consultancy previously, we had a project come in that was a 7-figure project that I was just like not touching it, handing it straight over, like don't want to know, like
Yeah.
just,
It
not
did
go, not go near
seem so. This is a cool little feature he
that. And the
built.
mobile app is, and sorry, just to add on for
Yeah.
anyone who isn't aware, Field Service has its own mobile app
Mhm.
that is nothing to do with the regular Salesforce mobile app. The
Right.
architecture is completely different. There is magic in it, and demons and all sorts of things. But like what you think will work is not necessarily going to. It's just a very different prospect. Very different.
Yeah, so he did talk about like, there's some steps you have to go through to make sure you deploy it successfully to the field service lightning mobile app. He talked about it being a separate app. The feature he built was pretty cool because
Mm,
so lightning data table, not supported
mm,
in field service lightning, and there's a whole bunch of standard
yeah.
components that aren't. And so essentially he built a data table specifically so that if you like were using field service lightning and you were doing an inspection, for example, you could have a list of all the different items that you're going to inspect in a single page that you could literally just thumb through, tap on, an evaluative, sort of classification, whether it's, in good shape or not kind of thing. And then like tap on a little note and like write a note if you wanted to on that and then kind of move on. Whereas I guess the normal flow for that in field service lightning is a lot of like tapping through different screens and going back and forth. So he kind of consolidated what was a pretty uh, uh, friction full experience in field service lightning into a pretty friction free one using just a few lightning web components. So it was a really good little demo that he had done. And this guy was a first time speaker and pulled off a live mobile demo. So he clearly had put in some work to make that happen. So kudos to him. Uh-oh. Paul is buffering. So it's me all by myself. So for anyone who's interested, take a look out for that on the so London Salesforce Developers Group does have a YouTube channel, and they aren't super quick about turning them around. It's all done for free, but eventually there will be a talk out there that's really good on field service lightning. You should take a look at that. Welcome back, Paul.
Hey, sorry about that. Like my internet just decided that it did not want to play ball for a second.
That's so weird.
So I don't know. I think my wife may have dialed into a call at the same time, and thus the internet was like hers was more important, which it definitely is equal. As yes.
Anyway, so
that's
enough about me. I thought I'd let's pass it over to you. How are you doing, Paul? How's things?
The internet's wonderful. No, things are good. I have been playing around with so there's two things or a few things I can talk about really. So work-wise and playing with stuff-wise, I'm so I have a new version of my currently released product that is coming out soon, where we are adding in two-way messaging, which is, I mean, it's a dumb thing, but it's quite interesting kind of getting to set it up yourself and do the UI and build out a chat UI and things like that. So that's quite cool. I had a good chat with someone from, in fact, lady that you know, and told me to go to Danielle Larregu. I think I pronounced her name correctly. Larregi. Apologies, Danielle Larregi. About Marketing Cloud, because I have a Marketing Cloud app coming out, and just checking that my plan and architecture was not completely mad,
Nice.
which it seems it is not, which is always a good sign. So yeah, because I've been working through that, but the documentation there is not strong, shall we say. Mm-hmm. So for those who are interested, we may, once I have that out there, in the future, do something about building a Marketing Cloud app, maybe, if we fancy.
That would be the first time I've ever really touched Marketing Cloud in anger.
Well, what's interesting is I've done integration work with Marketing Cloud through a bunch of the APIs, but building an app is just a bit of a different beast on there.
Yeah. I've used the part of Marketing Cloud that was Social Studio and Radiant 6. I was a user of that, but beyond that, not really.
That's not there anymore.
Is it totally gone, Social Studio?
Totally gone. Rest in peace. But yeah, so I've been doing that, and I have another app coming out on data scoring and analytics, which I'm working on with another partner. So that's been cool. So lots and lots of fun on that front and doing some development there. But so next week I'm off to the Cambridge user group to go and admin user group to talk to them about. I'm doing a presentation on SOQL. I'm learning SOQL called SOQLdo. So it's a spin on.
Say more about that.
Yeah. So people will remember we did a session before Christmas, didn't we, with Emily on learning SOQL as an admin. And so what I had in mind is there is a series of there's a thing on the internet called the SQL Murder Mystery, and there's also SQL Noir that a friend of the show, Todd Halfpenny, sent me the other day as well, which are just kind of games to learn the basics of SQL.
Right.
And I was like, I like that idea. Let's do, and so that was idea number one. Part number two was I like getting admins and people up to date with SOQL because I think it's an important little tool to know about. And part number three was I've done a lot of, this is not meant to sound like I'm bragging, I've done a lot of talks at a lot of events. And you know as well as I do, Pete, you can feel sometimes you get in a bit of a rut with the kind of talk you're doing and the specific presentation style. And what I wanted to try and focus on this year was doing something that felt more interactive and fun and could be built out more broadly than the talk. So last year, I think you were in the audience, in fact, for my London Schooling talk on building out Chat PRB.
You mean the live human inference engine?
Yeah, the live human large language model and neural network that we had. Which, but it was like, I thought it was quite a good instructive session as to how those things actually work, how they tokenize and how they build something up. And I like getting the audience involved because audience participation is always more exciting and also less work for you as a speaker. So the idea is I wanted to do something a bit more interactive again. And so I've come up with this murder mystery game called SOQLdo. It is a play on good old Cluedo. And
now I'm going to pause you there for a moment for the benefit of my fellow Yanks, because in the US,
Clue.
It's just called Clue. So, and that's something that like I think I'm going to have to look up after this. Why is it called Cluedo here? Any idea?
Instead
of just calling it Clue, I mean,
is it not because was it not over here first? Cluedo, known as Clue in North America, was devised in 1943 by Anthony E. Pratt, a British board games designer for Waddingtons. So, so I believe that it was called Clue in America rather than Cluedo, and I have no idea why it was called only Clue in America. So that is probably
I can take a guess at that. I still wonder why it was called Cluedo.
Why do you think it was just called Clue though? And in America, do you think that the dough would have just thrown people off and gone,
Yeah, I
"I
just think
don't
people are
understand
like,
this"?
"What the hell's Cluedo?" Like that just sounds weird and foreign, and I'm not going to look at that.
There's a sketch by
I guarantee you that's the American mindset. It's like that doesn't look like a American word.
not American. There's a sketch by Michael McIntyre, who's a British comedian, about the difference about how Americans are literal, and he was saying that the main words that are different between the UK and America are because the American versions are more literal,
Mm,
and
I think
so
I've seen
it's
this.
things like so instead of like in the UK we have a pavement down the side of a road, whereas
Right.
the Americans have a sidewalk, and kind of his joke is it's so that they know what they've got to do. They've got to walk on the side, and like over in Britain we go horse riding. In America it's horseback riding, so they know to get on the back of the horse. And so it's it is tongue in cheek for any Americans listening, but
I have seen that bit. But
yeah.
I feel like with a little bit of digging, I could totally reverse that and find some like really good
Oh God, yeah.
examples where there's some like totally literal British things that the US would be like, have something that's a bit more, I don't know, imaginative or like figurative.
I think the reason for some of that in America, just going way off tangent now, is English is a terribly bastardized language. It's like
Mhm.
basically English is what happens when you ask German people to speak French, um, and that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's it. Like
yeah.
that's what the English language is. It's German people speaking French, and then add on top of that, you then take that language and you go across the ocean with it.
Mhm.
And then what you do is you have waves and waves of immigrants coming over from Europe, Italians, Germans, Irish, Spanish, French, everyone going over to America. And then you've got to come up with a single language that you have to describe things in. So when you are talking about, you would probably be doing literal translations. If your native tongue is, let's just say you're Italian, and your
Mhm.
native tongue is Italian, and you are trying to describe to the person what you are doing, I am going to go riding on the horse's back. It makes complete sense why there's some of those things. So I think there's probably just like
Maybe.
a
Okay.
bit of like a. I think there's a very good explanation for it, where it is just a good way of doing assimilation and things.
Well, so one of the things that I ran across this
Welcome to
YouTuber
Cloud
called
Bytes conversations
That's
on
right.
language theory. We
Yeah,
will talk
we should
about
get a move
coding in a
on
minute.
pretty soon. But I did run across a really great YouTuber called Rob Words,
Mhm.
and he's a linguist, and he did a whole thing about why words in English, like why spellings are just so crazy. And what it turns out to be is that at the same time English was going through this massive sort of transformation in pronunciation, the printing press came out, and it's like certain things metastasized as spellings, not because that's how people spelled them, but because that's how the printers spelled them.
Yeah.
And all the printers were like from Belgium and the Netherlands. And so like they were like, well, that sounds like this word. So like, yeah, we'll just spell it the way we spell it at home and that'll be the way. Like so there's a bunch of
There's
words that like literally we're spelling it the way that they would in Belgium and the Netherlands just cause.
just
Just
good.
cause. Anyway, it's a great video. Put the link in there. I do
Okay.
agree we should probably move on, but I love talking about stuff like this. That should there
Yeah.
should
Well,
we should think of like an alternate version of this that is literally just all the other shit that we could talk about that has nothing to do with Salesforce
oh
development.
yeah, I mean, like, because I've still got things on the language thing from like my Spanish class of the week where we were talking about how English is just the only language that hasn't ever had the rules written down, and that's it. Like, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so I
So
don't know how
far,
we got onto
because it
that.
looks
Oh,
like we're
Cluedo,
going that way, aren't we?
yes. So Sokoldo was doing that, so I've got that next week as a dry run before I do it at Irish Dreaming.
Nice.
In a few weeks' time. And the other thing that I'm just doing out of pure personal interest is, are you must be familiar with like the Pragmatic Bookshelf?
Hmm.
They're a publisher, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a subscription I have to a group called Per Lego, which is like an online library. It's like $80 a year or whatever for online available books, and there's an app. but I found there's a bunch of the pragmatic bookshelf on there. So I'm sort of
nice.
trying to go through some of those, and I've got a series of very unexciting books on my shelf about quantum computing at a deep level. And I don't know if you saw the Microsoft announcement today about,
No.
is it Majaro? So Microsoft, again, welcome to the tech podcast where we actually get back on track. They've announced a quantum computer called, I'm sure it's Majaro, where it is 1 million qubits, they say.
Oh, wow.
Now, Majorano one here. Let me show the BBC page for it. Entire screen, this one. So this is the Majorano item here. BBC, great news site. They're not sponsoring this, but go and get your news from there. What they're saying is that they think it can hold 1 million qubits on here. To give you an example of how big the others are, the latest one, I think the biggest one before this was 1,000 qubits and is like the size of a room.
Yeah.
Whereas,
yeah.
So they found a new state of, not state of matter, but they've basically done something very, very clever with like the state of how the qubits are being stored. So yeah, not for us to dive into now, but when I saw this, I was like, I really want to dive back into. So my master's thesis was in quantum computation and information theory.
Interesting.
So trying to get back into that. See, not just a pretty face, Peter.
I would have never said so.
That's the you would have never even said a pretty face.
Yeah, it's best to just remain silent, in all things until. What's it? There's a great saying.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
No, it'll come to me. It's a much more. I think it's like a German translation of it, but it's like something along the lines of like. Yeah, the wording is perfect, but I can't sum it up at the moment. But yeah,
yeah. So for the one person who may have dialed in accidentally for, mine and Peter's visages, again, there are professional medical assistants out there for you. So Pete, let's actually talk about some code.
Sounds like probably what we should be doing.
Probably what we should be doing. So, we have talked tech and we have, talked a lot about Salesforce and Salesforce bits. But last 2 weeks ago, we were looking at command lines. And but specifically I, got very, very stuck because I came across TypeScript. And I have never done any TypeScript before. And yeah, it's one of those things I'd like to learn a bit more about, actually, because I can see some interesting benefits of it. And I think Lightning Web Components has TypeScript support in beta now. So I think it's becoming...
At least beta.
I think it's GA in summer.
Yeah.
Or maybe spring.
It definitely is a thing now, so...
Yes. So like there's that coming as well. Excuse me. And so... what I wanted to do is just quickly spend a couple of minutes talking about the working command line that we have now for doing our image to ASCII art and how that, what I had to do to fix it, if you will indulge me as such.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, you showed me a little bit earlier, and I think there'll hopefully be some really good things in there as far as TypeScript usage that I think both you and I, not a lot of experience with TypeScript, so that's good.
So, the place we were falling on our proverbial backside was here. So if I just comment out these lines a second, I think it should give us the same error, he says, where it was saying here, property photos does not exist on type error response or photos. And what happens is here in our output, we are receiving either an error response object or a photos object. So when we are making the call down here to the API returns one of those two objects. So it either returns an error response object or a photos object, depending upon, funnily enough, whether we've had an error or a successful request. Now, it then is saying that we can't, if it's an error response, we can't do this kind of chain of finding things along there, which is correct. So what I needed to do was excuse me, find a way of ensuring that the object we are working with is of the correct type. And now, normally you would think of using the type of word in JavaScript. So there's a, let me just say, let x equal 1, let number equal x, type of x equals number, right? And what it will do, let me just change that to number to is num. What that'll do is that will return a Boolean of whether or not x is a number type or not. Fairly simple and standard. The issue is that the type of operator only works with the base types in JavaScript. So string, number, Boolean, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't work with kind of custom types in TypeScript. Which, you're on mute if you were saying something. I saw.
I just threw big int out there as one of my favorites. So
big int, little int, cardboard box int. So what we need to do is have a way of allowing us to kind of check. And so in TypeScript, you have this thing called a type guard. And what you can do is you can define these user type guards, where what it will do is it's a little function that says is fish in this case, and it takes in a variable which has multiple types, and then it will kind of return a predicate, which is here. So the predicate takes the form of parameter name is type, where parameter name must be the name of the parameter from the function signature, so pet, and the type is the type that we are going to try and narrow it down to. So, and what this allows us to do is it says here, for example, in the very simple example here, so we get a pet, so we're going to get a small pet, and a fish can swim and a bird can fly, and if it's a penguin, we're just going to have issues, as they can't fly very far at least. But what this does here is this kind of type guard allows us to check to see, is our pet a fish? If so, we can run the swim, else we can fly. And that allows us to kind of use these predicates and type guards to kind of work with things. So
it's sort of like the enabler of polymorphism, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an enabler of both polymorphism, but I think more specifically, the way I would say I'm using it is, or the way I was thinking about using it was, it extends that type inference to your custom types in a way that you define. So whereas because you're not technically, with the polymorphism piece, I mean, what I would say, if I was being very boring and literal about my polymorphism, is I would just change this method to call move, and if it was a fish, it would swim, and if it's a bird, it would fly.
Sure.
That would be like my polymorphic way of doing it, and then overriding that method to do so. This is, I think, more where you have multiple possible types that could come in, rather than a polymorphic type. I suppose it's for something that could have multiple response types, which is a very, again, unique kind of JavaScript thing, because in most languages, you're not really having to deal with multiple response types coming through, unless it's either an error or it's a base type which you can then work with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, what it evokes in me is like the way that you can, for example, like switch on an S object type, for instance, in Apex, to kind of bring it back to something that folks who are developing with Salesforce, might be imagining.
Definitely. So anyway, we've added that type guard in, and we then use it to say, if this is a photo, then I log out what the URL is, which we can use in a minute, and then I use our Askify image library to Askify it. So, do you want to see it work? It's probably the big question.
Yeah, I totally do. Yeah.
So did I, after spending time updating it. So this is the output image, and as you can see, it works pretty well. there is a limit as to how wide you might want it and how many items you might want on there. It's quite, you can change the parameters in there. I think this is going to be a road through a forest, is my guess.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. There you go.
Nice. Yeah.
Forest.
It's funny, like the colored ASCII characters really wash out on the black.
I mean,
almost,
I can change it to white.
Yeah, I
if
wonder
you
if
want
like a
to.
white background would really make that show up. Not that that's that important. Just curious. Just thinking out loud.
Okay. Default. Let me quit the terminal. My eyes. Can I run it from no? CD pixels ASCII. Oop. So yeah, I think on the white it also there's no real good. It depends on the picture. So yeah, hence why I was dark moding it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because yeah, I think on a black screen that might have looked. Anyway, so that's it. It works. I will upload this onto. It's a pretty picture. I'll upload it onto GitHub, and you can, if you wish to, add your own pixels key and spend hours producing flowers and so on. I'm just going to change my shell back.
While you're doing that, just to shout out anybody on, hey, let us know that you're on, where you're at. It'd be great to see some comments out there if you're watching.
Yeah, always good to have people say, hey, if you fancy chatting to us, because we like chatting to you too. There you go. Oh, what's this one going to be?
Dog.
I think it's a woman in a wedding dress.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I've gone for a woman in a wedding dress, and Peter's gone for a dog. Who's going to be right, and who's going to get cancelled? Pete, you're cancelled.
Yeah, sorry.
Cool. So so that's the updated item there. And yeah, just wanted to make sure we covered off what had happened, how that changed, how we'd fixed it. And yeah, I think this is again interesting to go away and learn a little bit more about TypeScript. So
yeah, it's super cool.
So
of course, I didn't go any further with the Salesforce CLI plugin that I built, which I only got as far as I think doing a SOQL query. But that's actually where we're going to be heading next, is doing more with the Salesforce CLI. So I think that'll be okay.
It is. So shall we? I'm going to stop sharing a second. Shall we share what we're going to be looking at?
I think so. Do you want to give a little background and kind of like how the idea started, and like just a quick review of kind of where you came and then like where we ended up as well? So
yes. So the very original kind of start of this long old arc of episodes and things was Peter and I wanted to do something that kind of showed you how you could connect from making API requests from Salesforce to kind of almost making API requests to Salesforce, and really use the same building blocks and ideas to build a lot of different things. And so we have hopefully seen how you can build Lightning Web Components to make callouts directly, how they can use NPM repositories, how you can do it from Apex, how you can test those things. We've looked at making CLIs to do that now, and we've actually got them working. And kind of one of the things that I was talking to Peter about is years ago, and really kind of actually the genesis for a lot of any of the stuff I do on CloudBytes actually was from a course I undertook, an online course called Rails for Zombies, which was one of the, I don't even know if I can find the, I'm going to see if I can find the song somewhere. And Rails for Zombies was an amazing, it's still available on Pluralsight. If you want to learn Rails, it's a great way of learning Ruby on Rails. But the theme tune was just the best theme tune I've ever ever heard for a course. And so the kind of idea was I'd learned Rails, and Rails was really, really kind of good for helping you get started to do a complex thing quickly. And for those who aren't familiar with Rails, it was an MVC configuration framework for web-based Ruby apps, and it was used by a lot of big tech companies. Like Twitter was originally built on Rails, I believe. Airbnb, I think versions of Netflix at some point were. A lot of companies were using it. It kind of fell out of the industry kind of excitement and has been in and out, back and forward, I think, is fair
And I
to
think
say.
like Ruby in general had this ethic of make everything super productive for developers to build things, but it optimized for that. And performance wise, there were like a lot of apps had a lot of challenges. One of those apps being Trailhead. I would say Trailhead
Yeah.
is a Rails app that sometimes feels slow, and there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just looking at is it Tiobe, the software, kind of the index for. Let me share my screen. So Tiobe run an index for language popularity, and you can see here that the most popular language as of February 2025 is Python, C++, which I don't think is ever going to drop out of the top 10, nor C, because those things are going to live on until the end of time. I mean, the fact that Fortran's still up here, like, how is Fortran still the 11th most popular language?
I wonder how they rank that. So RedMonk do a language ranking, and that what they do is, and they'll probably have to. They've been talking about how they're going to have to refactor how they do this because the way that their two axes that they use is the popularity on GitHub as far as code, and then the other one is popularity on Stack Overflow. And that Stack Overflow thing obviously is changing a lot because of the nature of how large language models are impacting the usage. But I've always liked this one because it has those two different axes.
There's basically nobody likes to use. The way I would look at this is that, and this is Paul's really, really basic analysis, is that nobody. This is the I want to use this axis, and this is the I don't understand this axis. And so over here, nobody wants to use Visual Basic at all, but those that do don't understand what it's meant to do.
Well, that's VB.net, and then there's regular Visual
VBA.
Basic in the middle that apparently is more popular.
Visual Basic for applications is there, yeah. Where's Visual Basic itself?
Just to the right of VisualBasic.net. Up further, straight up from where you are.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah. Yes, sorry, yeah. So and
slightly
I mean,
more popular on GitHub, but still nowhere near as understood.
Yeah, I mean, who here? No one uses ActionScript anymore on Cold Fusion, and just no one's trying to use those things.
And
then we have over here.
These all tell a story, right? One, you could sort of joke about the fact that Apex is somewhere in the realm of Pascal and Elm, as far as where it lives.
Can we just
see just up from where you're at? There's Apex. Keep going.
There's Apex there, yeah.
And whatever
fairly
D
popular.
Is. I don't know what D is.
D follows on from C. It is genuinely a new language that was devised to kind of be. I think it's like an object-oriented C, I believe.
Yeah.
Nobody has any questions about rich text, which is good, and how to program in rich text, but they like using it. What my favorite line of this piece of this is, though, is that everybody wants to use JavaScript, but nobody understands how to, because that's just JavaScript, baby.
The other way to put that, because this is the story, right? The other way to put that is the more people that use it, the more questions there are, right?
Nope. I prefer my interpretation of just everyone likes it, but no one understands it. But yeah, you're right. It is completely that.
Right. And the reason Apex shows up so low on the Stack Overflow ranking, obviously, is because there's its own Stack Exchange, and they don't look at the other Stack Exchanges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we can see Ruby up here, in fact.
Yep. Yeah, Ruby.
So still
not
very
too far off. I mean, it's you know, it never really completely lost popularity, but it isn't, for a while, it was what everybody wanted to use.
All right. It was like everyone was big into it.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
Rails was
going
a
back,
big reason for that. The Rails was a huge
Rails,
reason for that.
huge reason for it. So
Yeah.
what I was saying to Peter anyway was that I loved how Rails allowed me as a developer to be like, Rails generate, and I could say, like, this is how I want my database table to be defined, and it would go away and basically build out the database table, the migration scripts for the database table, the controller, the basic UI, all of the, literally the whole MVC framework for it, the routing, everything. Now, which for some Salesforce developers, you might have heard me say all of that and be like, why would you ever need to do that? Because you don't have to do it on Salesforce. And that's one of the things that I love about Salesforce is that there's so much done for us. Like, when I create an object out of the box, the database migration scripts are done. I don't have to worry about that. You have your view defined for you with just the object layout. You have your model. You have your controllers, or the standard controllers defined for you in the background. There's loads of stuff done for us, which is just
You have
wonderful.
an API, you have an internal API, you've got...
You have your ORM done for you
Mhm.
in the S object. So, there's loads of stuff that's just done for us there.
Yeah.
But Peter and I were having a discussion, and I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could do something similar to that for Salesforce to help Salesforce developers run faster? And lo and behold, Salesforce already have lots of cool commands in the schema branch of the SFCLI. But we decided we were going to try and build something that Peter had looked at a while ago and used quite a lot in some of the training, and I know I've used historically, but that many people are probably going to have either A, never seen or B, forgotten about, because it's only available in Classic. So
Classic setup, no less.
Classic setup, which I still end up jumping into more than I'd like to. If any of the Salesforce product managers are listening to me moan here. But yeah, so what we thought we would do is we're going to build a little command line app that is going to recreate the create app. And that just sounds like I've said the word app here like 30 times.
Yeah, and so the official name for the button, I think, is called add an app or something.
Okay.
But yeah, which you're right. Like, it was, one of my jobs was to go and show developers like how quickly you could go from not having anything to store like a custom entity to at least having the scaffolding in place and in production and like fully working, from usable CRUD based UI all the way down to database plus API plus all that other stuff, right? So like that was security model. So we use this a lot. I don't know how often people ever used it in real life, but I do know that it was patented.
First of all, I think I remember the marketing line being from idea to app.
Mm-hmm.
Was a very
fastest path from idea to app.
Yeah, which was a very cool marketing tagline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I used it a few times. Like when I was just doing the first round of setup, it just allowed me to get 10 things done very quickly. So that's the idea. So in a second, Peter's going to show us what that looked like and how it worked.
It's a little walk down memory lane.
Yeah, so I hope people like the idea. Again, love to see any comments if people think it's a great idea, if you think it's a terrible idea, if you think there are other better ideas in there.
Well, and one of the things that I'll say to advocate for it, if anyone's feeling on the fence, what I like about it is that there are going to be some parts of it that will use existing command line commands, and there will be parts of it that we will have to like write probably some calls to the Salesforce org and and also make some local metadata changes in the project, so that it kind of includes all the different pieces that I would expect to have to potentially do in building a command line command, which is local manipulation of files, fetching metadata or configurations or data from the Salesforce org, and then, you know, pushing that up to the org as well, potentially, depending on how we decide to do it. Or sorry, reusing command line commands. That's where I was going with that.
Mm.
That are existing. So it kind of uses all the different, what I would think, pieces that you would want to, like, you wouldn't want to reuse building an object. You wouldn't want to reinvent that. You would just invoke the command from within your own command, I would hope.
Yeah.
So
This
I'm
is
really curious to learn how to do all of those things better. So
Yeah, definitely. I think for me the interesting part of it is that there's some of it where, as you say, there's reuse. There's some of it we're going to do some build. There's bits of working with XML, which is always a fun time. To kind of do that and build that out. And I like the idea of building something here that's kind of nice and modular, so that we can even think about reusing some of these steps later on.
mhm.
And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting and going to be fun for us. And
I can even
the
see
other-
some ways to extend it beyond what the original tool did, because the
yeah,
original tool, you basically provided 3 values and it would build all this stuff for you. Um, here, I think, you know, like one of the things that it didn't do was like to easily throw in place some fields, or and it would build the first object, but what if you want to build another object? So I see like all kinds of interesting ways to extend it in the
yeah.
future.
I mean, you and I have even discussed things like, could we build a little kind of way of defining some of this stuff that you pass in a file name, and it goes away and says, okay, great, here's your app name and your objects in the fields and all sorts of nonsense on it. So there's lots of ways we can extend it. And yeah, I think it's going to be cool. And I mean, I don't think this is an area that's ripe for AI to overtake us at the moment. So yeah, we can.
We can always test it out later.
Yeah, I mean, well, and this is something that, like, we have actually, Peter and I have chatted about as well. Is I think there's an interesting thing here that we could see what an AI produces if we have some of the requirements. So
Yeah.
Peter's going to go through now and show us what this magic button used to do. And then what we're going to do is spend some of today, writing up some of the requirements piece by piece, so that we can see how we want this to all operate end to end. Let me just add your screen to the stage.
Okay.
And we're going to use those requirements as our building block. So it's a little bit different today. Normally, I know we kind of dive into coding, and that's very honestly because, and this might surprise regular viewers, but it's normally because Peter and I know where we should end up and where we're going with things. This, I think it's fair to say, Peter, is a lot more unknown for the pair of us, and so
Yeah,
we're going to
for
try
sure.
and be a bit more kind of structured around it.
Yeah, and I mean, like literally the first time I tried to build a Salesforce CLI plugin was last week or 2 weeks ago. So,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of early reconnaissance I did to try and at least not be totally lost with it. But yeah, I think we're talking about something that's a bit more complex and has more requirements and has more dependencies. So having some time to architect the solution, so to speak, makes a lot of
Hmm.
sense to me.
Cool.
Cool. So, for those who haven't seen it before, in order to actually go and see this, like Paul said, we have to switch to classic mode, and I'll just do that here. Switch to Salesforce Classic. Which, it was funny. I was again doing a bit of early reconnaissance, and I went through this process once this morning. I kind of miss some of these things. Like, just getting to an app was so much easier than the waffle. I get why it is the way it is, and that's fine. But I just had to say that I actually, and like setup, it's just you click on it. There's not like a click on a thing and then click on another thing. But anyway, so this is the feature that we're talking about, and this came out around 2010 or 2011. I was really new at Salesforce when this was released into production.
Could you just zoom in a touch, Peter? Just
Yeah,
for
you bet.
it's a
And actually,
little
good
small.
point. I will let's do, there we go. That's probably a little better. Yeah. And actually, eventually, I ended up working for the product manager whose name is on the patent for this, which was Mary Scotton. Some people may remember. um, and the way it works is you just click on add an app. And like I said, you have three values. What's the app name going to be? And I was sort of imagining, let's say this is going to be our site inspection app, and then you would, the idea behind this is, what's the main object that would be part of this, and I'm going to call this an inspection report. And as usual, I'll just copy and paste that and put the S on the end, and that does start with a vowel sound. And so we'll select that, and boom, that's all you had to do. Which I always thought was super cool. I mean, it's a really cool idea to be able to do this. And you click on create, and it goes off, and uh, it had been long enough that I wasn't really sure exactly what it had built, but essentially it builds the object, a primary page layout for the object, an all list view for it. It adds a permission set, a tab with the object associated, of course, and then it adds the tab to an app, and it adds the app to the app menu. Now, it also made changes to a couple of profiles, which I think we will not implement. So those were all the bits that I found, and there we go. I'll click on go to my app, and it'll pop me over. It'll take me on a tour. I'm just going to say no thanks, because I think what I'm going to do is just switch right over to Lightning Experience, just so you can kind of see that there we are. My app is in place, and I can click on new. Of course, there's only one field to fill out at this point, and we'll cancel that. And then there's the all list view that was implemented. Of course, I don't have any, so that's fine. But essentially, you ended up with all the bits there and in place and working. You just need to then go and actually add the fields and do the rest of the work involved in completing that object. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a pretty no frills demo, because there isn't a whole lot to demo. It's super efficient, but it got you very quickly into this place of having a bunch of stuff.
Definitely. And I think there's some, like, just watching that there, I think there's some cool things we can even think of doing. Like, at the moment, you see the icon there that it's chosen. I don't think you get to choose that, if I remember correctly. Like, from what you've just seen, it just selects one, doesn't it?
This one there. Yeah, I have no idea how it made that selection. I did another one earlier, like I said. So I had done this. Oh, that's weird. It's not
It's probably
showing up
not
in,
added to your profile.
yeah, but it showed up in Classic.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just Lightning's caching problems. Jump back over to Classic and see.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Maybe if I just
No,
do
I
that.
think I think the take home from this episode is everyone should just switch back to Classic.
I'm sure all of the people who gave their blood, sweat, and tears to Lightning adoption would cry to hear you say that. Yeah, that's really interesting. For whatever reason, neither of those new apps is showing up in Lightning. So Note Taker was the other one. And that one has a heart.
Ah,
So that one had the heart theme. And again, if like I switch to Lightning Experience, like that works.
I think I know what it'll be.
What's that?
Could you go into the setup menu for me?
Of course.
And can you go to App Manager?
Uh,
Yeah, I think I think it's going to be just a classic app, and thus, there you go, classic.
Oh,
So
so
that's
that's
something. Yeah, that's something we're going to look at straight away. Is like creating Lightning apps.
interesting. Is that something you can change on an app, or is it once it's that app, it's always that type of app?
I don't know. Click the drop down next to it, and let's find out.
Yeah.
Go to
Uh,
find Note Taker, for example, and just
I totally forgot that there was a.
upgrade.
So that's not like. That's
So was that
so.
not a button that said upgrade on there?
No,
Or?
there was. I was just curious. Like,
Oh
they didn't even make that a setting in the metadata. It was kind of like
no,
I had to look before
yeah.
I actually clicked on. So note taker, yeah, upgrade. Oh,
So we will not be creating a classic app and then moving to Lightning. We will just be
yeah.
creating a Lightning app.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
Um, that also complicates the work that I did in the project.
Yeah.
That
So one of the things Peter did before this to be really, really helpful and think about it was like just you ran this, didn't you? And then pulled down all the metadata from the org to see what it created.
yeah.
Which
So it's here. I've got a GitHub repo out there on my GitHub account, and I also have it open. Nope, that's the wrong. Let me find the right. Oh, where'd you go? Yeah, that's fine. There we go. Yeah. So, and that's really I had only had a chance to sort of download these. I didn't go actually looking for anything, but sure enough, so that's the note taker app that I did earlier. And my guess is if I go and do my project retrieve call, obviously I'm going to get a second app, which is fine, but I'd be curious to see like what that application, that custom application looks like. And that'll be
what
something
the
to,
differences are.
yeah, that'll be something to take a look at.
Yeah. Cool. So, so yes, I think the things we're kind of making sure we can do are so. Shall we switch over and shall we start writing some requirements?
Yeah, that sounds good. Um,
Um,
should we switch to you now?
yeah, I've got to do this, and then I'll. So I've just shared with you a share link. Let me just
Great.
share this screen. Cool. Let me just save this as requirements dot. So this requirements file is going to be replaced and go in a while. What Peter and I have discussed doing is taking this and putting it onto a GitHub project on the Cloud Bytes TV GitHub organization that you can see VS Code has thankfully just shown us. Very helpful of it just to disappear all the time. And then once we've done that, we can create issues for this. And, we want to make it public so that people can see what we're planning on doing. And you are welcome to go in there and contribute ideas, add thoughts and things that you think would be cool for it to do. Very, very open to that community engagement. So we haven't come up with a name for this yet, have we, Peter?
No, I don't think so.
No, so that's going to be we're not going to spend the next hour just sitting here brainstorming names.
Yeah,
But
I'll try to think of some like asynchronously as we go through this.
yes. But let's come up with requirements. So we'll write these up here at a high level. So I think the first thing we need to do is create an app. So as a user, I want to be able to create a new app by providing a name, by learning how to type. I think that's pretty good. As a user, I want to be able to create a new app by providing a name for the app
and an object and a primary object.
I was going to suggest so this is architectural discussion number 1. Do we go through and create interesting? Because I wonder whether people might want to just be able to have the ability to create apps and to create an app with an object, and then we compose them together to be like. I almost think we've got a. I think we can have an app build an app command, and I think we can have a create an app command. And I think the difference being is that the build an app command or app builder setup is that there's a series of questions where you go through and you say, these are the objects, this is the permission set I want to create. This is, I mean, we have a real kind of detailed guide through to create all the things. But I kind of just feel like we could just say, okay, great, create an app here and ping that up.
Okay.
So just a bit more, just what I mean, like making it a more modular reuse, more modular setup.
Oh, I see. And so, so at that level, there would be like an app in the like the app picker, but not necessarily the object.
Anything, nothing on there. Because
what
I'm thinking, I mean, we can try it. I mean, I think there's a potential use case for that if you've got an existing. If you just want to create the app and push that up, I don't know.
Because at the very least, you need like one or more tabs that are going to be part of that, right?
It will also always have the home tab, won't it? So
yeah, I suppose. Okay. Yeah, I'm game for. I mean, if we want to start really basically, that's probably the easiest thing to create. You're right.
Yeah, and I suppose and this is obviously for those watching. Paul and Pete have a discussion and seem super uber prepared for this again as ever. This is one of those things where I think like it. So this is in fact something I was reading the other day about when it comes to command line apps. Have we ever really spoken? I didn't think we did the other week about like the philosophy of like how Unix command line functions work.
I don't know that I don't remember if talking about that in great detail. I know I've been talking about it recently because I just recently did a talk on command lines. But I don't remember how much detail we went into as far as that goes. Yeah.
So, well, just to cover it off a little bit then, what I'm thinking of here is, so the Unix command line, like the terminal you saw me type into earlier and things like that, has a litany of very small, discrete apps and commands that do one thing. Like grep just searches a file or a set of, a file really, or a string of content or stream of content to find specific things. And it does that really well. And cat outputs things really well. And ls prints out where you are on the file system really well. Like, there's all these small things, and individually they're useful, but they're not like earth-shatteringly amazing. But when you combine them together,
right,
you could do things like go through every file in a report. So I, as a story, years ago when I was working on my first Salesforce job at Financial Force, there was a piece of work I had to do where we had to find and remove a reference to something in all of the files we had. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that using a combination of grep and cat and all these other things to, and ls to go through a folder structure, interrogate every file in the folder, see if it contained the magic string I was looking for using a regular expression, and then if so, add that file to the to the output file. And so, you know, individually that wasn't crazy, but like that was just something that I could do. And it took me like 20 minutes to figure out the right combination of commands to go through and search what was a large number of lines of code.
Right.
And so I think
You know,
Peter's got an example you want to share.
if you pop my screen up,
Yeah.
I have a really good example of that. So, so this file looks like that, and
You just zoom in again.
essentially,
Sorry,
what's that?
Can you zoom in a touch again? Sorry, it's a bit small.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
bet.
come on.
So
Just Command plus plus, I think.
yeah,
Cool.
okay,
Thank you.
yeah. So, and there's some duplicates in here, like there's Jake Lorak twice. These are just the names of users from the developer edition org. That's where I got most of these from, I think. So if I do just like that, like, and I just wanted to know how many unique names there are. First off, so if I do head minus n1, oops, not 12, head minus, that's weird. Why is it stuck? Okay, let's try that again. Minus n1. Come on, isn't it minus n? Oh, I need to tell it the file. Names.txt. Let's try again. Head minus n1 names.txt. Right. So the top line is that, obviously. So what I want to do is take the tail. And actually, I forget how to do. All right. So what I could do is I could say cat names.txt, and then I could pipe that to word count minus L, and that'll tell me how many lines there are. So then I could do tail names.txt minus n30. And now I'm doing that backwards, aren't I? Minus n30 names.txt. Okay, and now I have everything but like the header line. And then I could say, well, you know, so if I want to find out the individual names, what I could do is then sort that. And so that's doing tail to sort. And then I could say, okay, I could do tail to sort to unique. And now I actually have all the individual names that are deduped. And then I could take that one step further and I could say, well, how many names are there? Word count minus L again. And there's actually word count minus L. There's 20 names, like 20 unique names. And that's kind of what Paul's talking about, is that each of these commands does one very specific thing. And it really follows the rule of do one thing and do it well. That's the principle of the Unix command. I usually try and remind people who use Salesforce that they're a lot like functions. When you build like a formula field, each function takes something, changes it. It does one very specific thing, and then it outputs something. Like that's how functions tend to work. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was banging on about there. And so I think, and this is a really useful little demo of it all. It reminds me how little I remember of the command line commands. Where you showed up the names there. There's a thing about there's a baseball game that was created in like the 80s or 90s in Japan. By Sega, and they came up with a list of like fake names for it.
Oh, God,
but they just basically took like what they thought were American sounding names, and so they were just like it was like Jose Tiger, and like really crazy names like that. Which when I saw that list, I was like, please tell me you used that list. Cool. So yeah, so that's what I was thinking, Peter, is we could make it really modular like that for those different pieces. So then,
yeah, that makes sense.
As we do stuff, we can have interesting flavors. So we have here the create an app item. Do we want to put in some acceptance criteria here for it? So, or do we just want to write some simple requirements and then we can add things in as we go? Let's do the simple things and add things in as we go.
So, and if I look at Yeah, one of the things I was playing around with was going and actually pulling back down the so let me go back to that directory.
Is that
Cloud-based TV, test app button. Okay, so and if I do I have a whole bunch of commands in the way. SF project retrieve preview. I can see here that there's like so that lightning note taker the note taker lightning app, right? That's essentially what
do you want
we would need to
to?
create.
Yeah, do you want to share? Let me share your screen.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So I didn't actually retrieve this yet. I just did the preview to see what's up in
Yeah,
my org now that I haven't pulled down. And it looks like there is the note taker app itself. So I'm assuming that's got to be the Lightning app.
yeah.
What's interesting is that it seems to think that the original note taker custom application has changed. So it'll be curious to see pulling that down, like what looks different in those.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'll call this. All right.
Did you create the site inspection developer permission set?
No, that was created by the wizard.
Interesting.
So if I do SF project retrieve start, then that should pull all of those down, and we can go and take a look at how things have changed. That all looks good. So there's the original note taker app meta. It doesn't look any different. So that may just be like a shadow change that sometimes happens with metadata pulls. So, but there's the Lightning app. And I didn't see any existing command line command that creates a custom app for us.
No, there isn't one that I could see in the schema. So, and this is probably just worth spending 2 seconds on. So, oops, that's not going to work there, is it? So let me just share my screen again. Apologies for the swapping around here. So the schema here allows us to generate a field, a platform event, an S object, or a tab. And then there's, I think, under S object we can describe. There was, and there's also field. So yeah, field. Oh, did I say field? I say field. Field, event, object, and tab, which is good for a lot of what we're looking at, but there's obviously going to be different things we're going to want to do. So there is no app that I can see in there.
No. Which kind of makes sense. Like you don't do a lot of creating of apps.
No.
But things like tabs and objects, you probably would do a lot more of that. So I can buy that.
So I think there's interesting things here, like signing a permission set. We can do generating passwords, refreshing sandboxes, converting projects we're not really too bothered in. Just sort of going through here to show people the different options. So scanner is for the source code scanner. Very important if you're doing a managed package. Static resources we can generate. It's interesting. Visualforce commands. We can generate a page and a component there for anyone still using Visualforce. Plugins, package, and package we're not too bothered with. The Lightning commands. Lightning generate app. You're on mute, Pete. 1 minute. This is an Aura app.
Right.
Yes. So, do we want to talk about the difference between an Aura app and a regular Lightning app, and why you just want to
Okay,
ignore this? So,
let me take a stab. Aura apps
go
are
for it.
a URL addressable Aura component.
Perfect. That's good. We'll move on.
Let's
So,
move
like,
on.
yeah. So, just to be clear, though, here when it says a Lightning app, this is not what we're doing.
Yeah. In fact, like, so I'll say, in that very succinct definition, like if you ever wanted to have a Lightning web component UI that was just rendered as a tab, like this is kind of the only way to do it right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. As a managed package developer, I can tell you it's a real bugbear. So so this is
Yeah.
there are two ways you can do it. I can tell you the way that I've actually got around this, so that you don't have to do it. What you do is you create a regular Lightning app builder page that has its own and have a tab for that,
Okay.
and then you can just drag your Lightning web components onto that page
Right.
and set it up that way. But
That
otherwise,
makes a lot
yes,
more
it's
sense than having to do anything in Aura, frankly.
like Aura's just If you can
Yeah.
avoid it, avoid it.
Well,
So yeah, we can generate. So this is for components. So Lightning Web Component or Lightning Aura Component. This is Lightning Events, which are Aura events. An interface, which I think anyone ever really got on with them, and tests if you want to generate a test. Info gives you org release notes info, force data for doing data, doctor for run diagnostic tests, dev if you want to do some messages and bits like that for plugin development, more data, commands, config, community. We can create communities. I would love to see someone try and create and publish a community through the command line without
I
wanting
have
to.
seen that and I've been curious, but I just unless you're
Yeah,
building a
what?
community, nobody builds a community.
No. We can
Somebody's
generate
paying
custom
you to do it.
metadata here, which is interesting.
Yeah, I had seen that.
API requests, Apex, analytics, and aliases.
Alias.
So a bunch of stuff in there, but we are focused on regular Lightning apps. So what I've gone and done here is, so I've said the two things we want to do for this as our basics. Peter and I are going to go away and add in a load of additional flags that we want to add in. So I think there will be a flag that allows you to say we can define app logo using a flag, or I'll reword this so it's not terrible English, but I think we'll want
I
a
like
flag
that.
for doing the app logo, and I think we'll probably want a flag for saying well, let's just leave it like, I think there's some basic ones there, and then in our broader one, which we put together, will be things like adding permission sets. So I think here we've got the ability to create a permission set.
I would just put so at some point some broader, like, just to put it in there, like there's a bunch of standard flags that exist, but I think you still have to explicitly enable them in your plugin. So like the JSON flag, the flags directory flag, like um what it takes to do that in your custom plugin. I'm not entirely sure, but after having done one, it doesn't seem like those just automatically appear. You do need to, like, tell it, like,
Yeah,
use the standard flag type of thing.
there you go. Cool. We can add that in as a investigation piece. So cool. So my thought was, so we've got our app.
Mhm.
That's one thing. We also want to be able to create a permission set, which is not in there at the moment. And so I think that is just like, you pass in a name, and so permission set is created using the name provided. And I think we also want separately an add permission, add object permission. Oh, this is where it gets granular and fun.
Yeah. To be honest, the existing permission sets. So description has activation required flag, label, license. Oh, has activation required, I guess sounds like you have to explicitly go and enable it or something. And then there's
Yeah, that's
object
the thing.
permissions, but there is no, there's nothing related to providing access to like tabs or apps.
No.
And I wonder if they've stuck that permission in
that's
profiles.
under object permissions. It's under object permission. It's under object permissions. It's a really weird way. Like you have to, if you create the tab, I think I looked at this the other week. If you in the system create an object with a tab and then go into the permission set object settings for that object, then the tab will show up there for you to do. There's no separate place for tabs unless it's a custom tab.
Well, but like in the profile, there's an application visibility setting.
Yeah,
and there's layout assignments, which obviously that requires an object.
Yeah.
So I think somewhere in the permission set, I guess, you could also do application visibility, or do you have to do that profile only? I'm not positive.
Well, yeah, I think what I was going to suggest we do is we write down here for the permission set. So things like, add application to permission set.
Right.
So basically we go through and we and again, these are kind of like interesting things for us to think about of how we structure this and organize it so that we say we are adding. So you could argue here that we actually make this an add metadata to permission set option, and then we have flags that allow you to say, you kind of have a flag which is -t for the type of metadata, and then you have a flag which is -n for the name of the metadata.
And there's also a tab visibility setting that'll be one of those as well.
Yeah. So do we want to do that instead of having it as an object, as a field, as a thing like that? Maybe we make it as an add metadata to permission set.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I want to be able to add a permission to a permission set for a specified piece of metadata. Provide the name and type of the metadata, as well as the relevant permissions. Because for things like tab, it's just visibility. For things like objects, it's CRUD. For fields, it's read and view.
Yep.
Some of them are required. So yeah. So cool. Okay, we can do that. So that's adding meta. So we've created an app. We've created a permission set for that. We've added our metadata to that permission set. Right. I think we're going to want the ability to create an object. We're also going to then want the ability to create a tab, because is there a create tab option? Did we see?
There is. Yeah, there is.
Yes. So we've got our object, we've got our tab, and we've got our object, tab, and fields. What else do we want to have in here that we're going to want to create as well? So object, tab, fields.
Object, tab, fields, app,
permission set. Is there anything else that was in your repo?
So app. We need to insert the app menu item into the app menu.
I've got that here.
Do you? Got it. Okay. Then there's the app. Oh, layout. Does that automatically get generated with the object?
Ooh, don't do that. Sorry, I've just moved things around I'm not meant to.
I would guess that like a default layout gets automatically created with the object. Should I just run it and see if I just run that command on my org?
Yeah, do that and let's see what
happens.
we get. what we get created.
Okay.
Because interestingly, it generates a default for you on these things. Yeah, let's switch to Peter's screen to see. I think it should generate a default for you on these things, but if you edit it, then it will start to create defined lightning pages. So I don't think the lightning page is actually defined as metadata. We can see. I'm just going to turn my light on as it has started really heavily raining here.
Yeah, we're getting that too. Let me just commit my current changes so that my new ones will be more obvious.
Well, I've got my Shirtforce t-shirt on today as well. For those who are watching and haven't visited shirtforce.org, go to Shirtforce where you can get wonderful t-shirts such as this Jason and the Argonauts one, and many, many more. It's all for a good cause and helps. I think all of the profits go to charities. And yeah, if you want to hear more about it, listen to the episodes with Todd Halfpenny and Rob Cowell of Cloudbytes Conversations, where we discuss it.
Okay, I've got my new branch. So let me do SF schema object. No, generate object.
SS, yeah.
Why not? S object.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give it a label. And I'll call this, I'm just going to call it test object. Because I'm now feeling all out of actually good ideas. Names. And I'm going to use the use default features, which we looked at before, which is, so there's a...
You're missing an S.
I should have just tabbed and then it would have done it for me. So we looked at this before, and there's a cool thing where this just enables things like reporting and the bulk API. It enables field history. So like all those bits and pieces that are kind of what you want from one of your primary objects for tracking your data. They just get, all those check boxes and tick boxes and things that you have to select as you're going through the object creation wizard. It just basically says yes to all of those, and then you get all of them. So we'll go ahead and run, because I don't need the other two. Yep. Which local directory? Yep, that's good. Yep, happy with that. Yep, that's fine too. Great.
You have to add a description as well. If you don't add one, it will tell you. If you just, I mean, you've written one, but if you delete it and then were to do that, it would whinge at you.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you call the required field name? Yeah, that's fine. I'll just take all the defaults. It's going to be a text. Org-wide sharing model. We'll just keep it as the default read write. Boom. Okay, so now if I do a get diff, no? Well, I can go ahead and just open it up here and see what we got. So all that's been added is the object. It doesn't even include, oh, that's actually one thing that comes with the object is a the default all list view. So that should go into the requirements.
Yes.
And layouts, I have nothing for my test object, which is interesting.
Will it not create that list view for us anyway?
You mean if I just try deploying it?
Yeah.
That's a good question. All right, so SF project deploy start, right? That's all I need, isn't it?
You think so, yeah. Yeah, start. I'll be really honest. I'm very lazy and hardly ever use the command line and just use VS Code saves for a lot of these things.
Okay,
Cool.
and now
Crazy.
if I do retrieve start, what happens? Well, I'll just do actually the preview. See if it actually created anything extra. Nope.
Okay, but if you log in though and open up the org and look at the object, is there not an all list view there?
Let's find out.
Because I think there's a bunch of weird stuff that is done like that.
Okay, so if I go to app launcher and look for a test object.
Yeah, you need to refresh the page.
Yeah. All that lovely caching doing its work. View all.
Have you got permissions on it?
No, because it wouldn't have created a.
So yeah,
it literally creates the object and
yeah,
nothing else.
Well, so if you just go onto your profile though and add read permissions.
Yeah, let's see.
I'm trying to decide how many gaps that not. And when I use the word gaps here, I use it badly. Like I'm just wondering what you could end up doing by not. You know what I mean, by creating the object and not creating these other things, if that makes sense.
There we go. Next. Custom objects. Oh, it was. It doesn't. It was. That's why it didn't show up. So it's there, but it also doesn't have a tab, which is probably the main reason why it doesn't show up.
Yeah. Okay, so let's play investigator now and create a tab.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Okay, so SF schema generate. So okay.
So O is for the object.
Icon. Oh yeah, so there is an icon option. That's handy.
Cool.
Okay, so minus object, and we called it test. Is it the API name? Yeah, test object C. Directory.
Misspelled.
Directory. There's too many vowels in this world. That ought to be it.
Bang. Generated a tab. Okay. So.
And let's, oops. Give it another try.
It won't be assigned to you yet, though. So you need to click edit on the profile where you are.
I'm just looking. Yep. Okay.
Once again, the system administrator is foiled by Salesforce's security.
Tab hidden, sure enough.
Okay. Although we're doing this all on the profile, despite the fact we know we're going to be doing it on permissions, it's late.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're just trying to figure out what's going on, to be fair. So that.
No, I think that's take home number two. Take home number 2. profiles instead of permission sets. So remember, everyone, use Salesforce Classic and profiles, not permission sets. That's what we've learned today.
Avoid that perm set bloat.
Yeah. Next thing to do, workflow rules.
Oh, if only. So what does it find?
Just what we've changed.
Yep. Okay.
But if you open that tab, then do you have
It's
an all
interesting.
list
It pulled in a profile session setting and a password policy setting.
view?
Sorry, what were you saying?
That's if you hop back into your actual org. So if you go to that tab now, that you should be able to see it. Do you have the all list view? And thus, is it a secret list view that doesn't really exist?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's going to be no, but yeah, let's test. Oh, I have to refresh. View all test objects. Nope.
Oh, just recently viewed. Okay,
Just
cool.
recently viewed. So there we go. Yeah, interesting. I totally get. I mean, like, they did exactly what you were talking about, which is they made it modular.
Yeah.
But like, what happens if you click new?
There's a
Where's
page
it
there
getting that
already.
page from?
So it's the default page layout. It just doesn't exist. So what will happen is if you just save that now. Okay. So if you were to try and retrieve that page doesn't exist at the moment, right? And for anyone wondering, like, this is using that. If Peter was to go in VS Code and open up the inspector, like the org, what's it called, org inspector, org explorer, whatever the thing
Yeah,
is.
that thing.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah. So we're just for the thoroughness here to show everyone. And Peter goes to Lightning Pages. So layouts, it'll exist at the bottom down there, I'm pretty sure. Right at the bottom, because it's a custom. Is it not there? Yeah, test object. There you go.
But I can't retrieve it. Or at least it's not being recognized by source tracking.
Yes, that's well, this is the difference. So I think if you click, you can retrieve that. If you click on that, you will be able to retrieve it down. But it's not recognized by source tracking because it's not seen as having been created in a certain way. It's a very
that's bad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah. So like I think
I've worked with a lot of people who build these tools. I have lots of respect for them. This is bad though. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's an interesting thing here. So we need to create the all records list view.
Yeah.
So actually, we can create a list view. I think is the thing we want to do, and then have it create. So create a list view.
That's the list view is super easy though. So like, I'll show you the metadata for it. I was like, really? That's the whole list view?
Oh yeah, but there's no command for it though, Peter. We're innovating with the commands.
I know, but like what I'm saying is, from the standpoint of having to actually create the XML for that list view, it's not exactly arduous. That's it. Boom. That's the whole
thing. Do you not need, what about the list view fields and filters? Yeah, for the all one, but I mean, I suppose we might be...
Everything.
Well, we might be abstracting... Yeah, just everything could all... We might be abstracting it though, Peter, so we're going to do things like allowing people to give fields and all sorts of stuff.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure if I go and change that list view and then I go and pull that back down again, it's going to update that.
Oh yeah, so, completely agree. Yeah. Just what I'm saying is, I suppose from the reverse side, we can allow it to do cool stuff.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yes, yeah, for sure. Like we could go and like modify or create a new list view and see like what does it look like to have like a filter on a list view or to have more fields on a list view. Yeah, totally.
It's all right. We can just say that we're fixing Salesforce's gaps. Sorry.
Well, we kind of are.
I know. I mean, because the other
Well, we
thing that
haven't
was,
yet, so let's wait till we actually have
yeah,
to
let's
claim
see if we
anything.
can actually do this. So yeah, so we got so we've got there for a tab, what am I trying to say? We've got a tab, an app, a permission set. We have the ability to add. Let me show you the screen a minute, and
Yeah,
we can
that's
start going
good.
through this. So,
Let's bring that up.
um, so create a list view, add metadata to a permission set, create a permission set, create a Lightning app. Do we want to add something? I keep on clicking the wrong screen trying to type.
On that create a list view one, I would say for now, create a list view, and like the first iteration of create a list view is this one, which is just filter scope everything,
Oh yeah,
and label all and full name all, right? So create
yeah.
an all list view doesn't
Oh
exist, right? But as a really
yeah, okay.
simple new list view, like that's a great way to like kind of build out the first version of that particular command, and then eventually like iterate on it so that you can actually you know create a list view with some specific fields that maybe you
Yeah,
alliterate out, and with a filter, like anyway. So that's kind of like as far as like the crawl walk run type of
yeah.
scenario.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for definite. So we got the list views. We got meta permission sets. We got adding things to a permission set. We got creating a Lightning app. We can already create a tab and an object.
Yep.
We can already create a field.
And
What
did you
else might?
say page layout?
Well, we really want to, because did it? I think it created that page layout for us anyway. So
I
do we want
think
to
you're
create the?
right, and it just doesn't track it in source tracking. Yes.
Yeah. So do we really want to add in the ability to retrieve? Well, we can retrieve a page layout just by using the name anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if we can deterministically know, if we create an object called X, then once we deploy the object for the first time, then page layout that's named
Mm,
X default page layout
yeah.
will exist in the org. If we can test that out and feel like yes, that always happens, I'm kind of comfortable with that. Part
Yeah.
of me
If
would just rather like create the
create one.
page layout, but I know working with XML sucks, and layouts are like one of the worst bits of metadata XML you have to deal with apart from profiles.
Yeah. Let me I'm just gonna bring
So,
your screen back up because the other interesting thing there is if you go back into your inspector, org
yeah.
viewer, whatever it
Yeah.
was called.
There. Yeah.
What's it called? Org browser, thank you. If you go
Org browser.
to Flex, is it called Lightning Pages rather than Flexi Pages though? I want to call them
Uh,
Flexi Pages.
that's a good question. Are they no flexi
No,
pages?
of course. So if you just and you can just press the little refresh button next to that, just as this is a really interesting thing to show people. So there is no Lightning page layout for that page, but when Peter is in the UI, we are definitely in a Lightning page. It's only when Peter edits and saves that page, which we could show now as a quick little demo if Peter
Yeah,
goes
sure.
over and
That's a
if
good
you don't
point.
mind.
So we'll go
So let's
here
go
and we'll
and
go
then
to
edit page.
edit page.
So
I'm
if we
curious
don't
how
do,
quickly it actually appears. Is it already there? Or do I have to save it for the first time?
I think you have to save it. But I
Okay.
think you can only. So if you hit save,
Yeah.
there you go, and hit activate, then it becomes a real page.
Actually, I want to try something different.
Okay.
Sorry, that got me curious. So save. Oh, activation. Oh, I want to try it again without activate to see how it's different, but that's fine.
Okay. Well, why don't you do
Sign
another new object quickly? Because we know it creates a page layout and all these things, and we just need to add the tab, don't we?
right. Save. Okay, so now refresh, and there's
Yeah.
the record page.
What I think is the interesting question I'd like to know, and we can test in the background, is if you created the object and then tried to deploy something called ABC underscore record underscore page, will that record page already exist in Salesforce in some form or not?
You mean the actual page layout or the Lightning page?
Well, both. I think is the interesting, because I think the page layout will exist, as we've seen it actually exists in metadata we could treat, but that Lightning page didn't exist until you saved it. But
Right.
if we
Yeah.
tried to save one with the exact name of what was there, would Salesforce say, actually, we've got this, it's just hidden in the background, don't mess around?
Interesting. I'm gonna say, so here's what I suspect how it all works.
Mhm.
Clearly, without a page layout, nothing works. And so, like, when you deploy the object, somehow the platform knows that, and it goes like, I better stick a page layout in here, because I'm pretty certain there wasn't a test object page layout until we actually deployed that, right? How could it know? My guess is that until you create a specific Flexi page for your object, there's just a generic system Flexi page that's sitting there serving the purpose of the Flexi page until an object specific one. And so your object specific one becomes kind of an override on a default. That would be
I
my
think
guess. But it'd be interesting to ask Eric Jacobson, because I bet he would know.
yeah. Well, if we can get him on the podcast, on the stream, that'd be great. But
He
yeah,
works
but
for
like,
ServiceNow these days, so
yeah, maybe not. Yeah, but I think it's I think there's some interesting things like that we can figure out. So
yeah.
So okay, so what I'm just aware of, we have about 15
About
minutes
15
left.
minutes.
So why don't we wrap up a little bit as to where we are, where we're going, and the plans for in 2 weeks' time, and
Sounds good.
what our homework is, Peter. So I think so. Where we are then is we've hopefully shared with you today. So first of all, hi to Ravi from Ravi's room and to Mohammed from Kenya. Thank you both for joining us, and hello to everyone else watching along.
Thanks for popping on.
Yeah, and for sharing where you're from. So I think for the next episode, what Peter and I are going to go away and do is we've got here like the rough idea of what some of the building blocks we need to do are. We're going to go away and put these together on a proper GitHub repository with a number of kind of actual requirements written out with different pieces that we want in there. One of the things I'd love to spend some time thinking about is AP, like maybe a way we document the design. So one of the things that I was reading up on is, you remember last time we spoke about Apogee and Greg, and like I think API design, there's a really good format for it, and like now you could just use Open API as a way of speccing that out, and it's very clear and concise. I wonder if there's a similar thing for CLI, like documentation and design, because that's an interesting. Yeah, because I think that'd be good for us to kind of define like where we're thinking of flags and options and what's on there. If not, Peter and I are going to end up quitting Salesforce and just be known as the CLI documentation guys.
CLI design guys.
Yeah, it's that's going to be it. But yes, but I think that could be an interesting thing for us to look at to try and see if there's a standard or a format we could follow, just to make sure, or if not, invent one for the number of flags, the options, the parameters, everything that we're going to take in, and speccing out all those variations that we see coming through.
So I think we're going to be going to the site clig.dev, command line interface guidelines.
So clig.dev.
Yeah, there's a few other ones. Atlassian has one, ThoughtWorks has one, GitHub has one. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm psyched to read a few of these.
Cool. Yeah, so I think,
and I think, big surprise, Heroku Dev Center has one too.
Yes. Shock there.
Shocking.
So yes, I think So I think there's some cool stuff we can do there. One of the things that we've said as well is we want to try and what I think our aim is let's try next. So before the next episode, have some of these ideas built out. Oh, that was a lovely flourish of hearts I wasn't expecting. Didn't realize that was going to happen. That was meant
Yeah.
to be that. But obviously, I love these streams. I love doing it, so it's very appropriate. The I've lost my train of thought now.
You're totally
Yes, we could. Yeah, so we can start building out some of these basic ones. And what I think would be really cool for us is to just kind of show those iterations and how they build on each other. And also, one of the things I'm keen to do in this is to add some testing as well as we're going through to make sure that we've got a repeatable way, because I like the idea of modularization and layering upon layering upon layering so that we can have a very robust suite of stuff.
And the CLI uses a different test framework than Jest, if I'm not mistaken.
So use Mocha.
Mocha, I think.
Cool. Well, yeah. Well,
that's just saying.
that'll be fun for us to figure out.
Can't wait.
Yeah. I mean, like along the way, we're going to have to, I think, learn some TypeScript because everything's now using TypeScript. So that's another thing you and I need to spend some time looking at as well.
Theoretically, you're supposed to be able to like kick off and like create a command line plugin that is just pure JavaScript, but it doesn't seem to make it really obvious how to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to like letting you do that. The other thing we're going to do is have a think about a name for this thing, and some names for different bits and pieces. So the last thing I just want to talk about is some of the things that we're working on as upcoming items for the channel, because Peter and I don't just talk every 2 weeks, although it might seem on these episodes like we haven't spoken to each other in 2 weeks, and we're obviously super organized. We are working actively on getting a few more guests to come on for other sessions. So if you saw the episode we did before Christmas with Emily, that's one of my favorite things we've done is having Emily on and going through and kind of doing something a bit different. We are trying to line up a few guests. I can't share who at the moment because they have yet to fully agree. It's not they don't want to, but so we're working on that and trying to broaden that out.
Yep.
We just on that as well. If there's any particular technology or piece of Salesforce you would like, Peter and I are both very open. I think in that our area of strength is like Lightning Web Components, Apex, and definitely not TypeScript, but JavaScript and like building out these command lines and things.
And the core platform stuff, just in general.
Yeah.
We both have spent lots of time with that. So
yeah. One of the things that I'm wanting to see if we can do more of is, I mentioned we might do some marketing cloud stuff as I've been working with that a bit more. But if there is other pieces of technology you want to see us cover and you want to see us discuss, please let us know in the comments. Reach out to me, reach out through the YouTube channel on the community part, and let us know because we can always try and find experts to do that and try and produce more content around that and get other people on because we want to help people learn. And the Salesforce team, a few of them are very giving and open to doing it, and there's a bunch of experts Peter and I know out in the world as well. With that, the other thing we're working on is we haven't come up with a good name for it yet, have we? But we're going to call it the debate series. Smackdown, yeah. The debate series is what we're going to call it. The Salesforce Smackdown, and do you know what? I might see if I can get my video editor to, if we're going to call it Salesforce Smackdown, to produce some sort of bang kind of animation for us. Smackdown. And then just, I want to give you a radio DJ button to do that. So the idea is...
horn,
yeah. So the idea is that we want to provide a way of having interesting discussions and debates around pieces of tech, primarily on the Salesforce platform, but we'll probably go a little bit broader. We might talk about things such as, will AI replace developers? As an example, which is the best San Jose? Is it in California or is it in Costa Rica? I think it was Costa Rica, you said?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a tough choice.
You know, is which way of spelling which is correct, aluminum or aluminium, and we both know it's aluminium. All of these things we will cover off. But no, the big topics that people want to see.
We're not gonna do tabs or spaces though, right?
No, I mean there's holy wars. We're not, don't get
Yeah.
involved in religion is one
And
of the things that we say.
it's been done, I mean, once Silicon Valley has had the discussion, the actual sitcom, I think, yeah, that's good.
We all agree it is a tab that is the width of 3 spaces. That's, or as I like to call it, the anarchists option. What I like to do is I like to assign my tab key to be a random number of spaces, so I never know what I'm doing.
Oh my God. You would never be able to write Python with that particular setup.
No. There's a meme I saw earlier on where someone was like, I was working at home today and my mum was there, and this is like a FANG engineer, and he was like, mum was like, what are you doing? And he was like, oh look, I'm writing some, he was saying he was writing some. She was like, so you get paid a lot of money to put some words on a screen that just happen to be in pretty colors. He was like, yeah. She said, and you've not even got them all left aligned properly. And he was like, this is like every code review I've ever gone through.
Your mom can review your code.
Yeah. So the idea of these debates anyway is to have these discussions. They will be focused and not rambling madness like this is sometimes. 30 minutes, they'll be pre-recorded. We'll be sharing them where there will be 3 people on there. There will be 2 debaters and a host. I'm very keen. We have got someone lined up as the other debater at the moment. We're just finalizing details with them, so I'm not going to share names or anything at the moment. But if it's the person that we're hoping it is, they are a very, very smart and well-respected person within the ecosystem. So I'm really pleased to have them come on to join us on it. I think that's a very understating them, in fact, version of who they are. Yeah. Yeah. So we're looking to do those. So if you have topics you'd like to see thrashed out there, let us know. And the really important part of those things, which we will be reiterating again and again, is that it's to try and find a middle ground consensus. So we don't, I'm sure one of the things I don't want to do, but let's just take the idea of doing Flow versus Apex. We're not going to do Flow versus Apex because that's been done to death, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But with that, the idea would be that, and let's just say it's me and Peter as the 2 debaters here, with a third person as the kind of moderator. Each of us would choose, will be given randomly one of these topics, so you don't have skin in the game. You're just given a topic. We'll go back and forth, and then the idea is at the end is that the pair of us, or all 3 of us, sit there and say, well, where do we think the sensible midpoint is? Because that's really where you should be trying to find yourself. I'm sure there's going to be at least 1 or 2 topics where myself or you or the other person ends up defending something that they have absolutely zero belief in. But
that's the fun part about debating, actually.
Exactly. Well, I think that's A, the important part, and B, I really want to see you defend 3 space tabs.
Do you want to see me defend the British spelling of words like color?
You mean the proper spelling?
Neighborhood?
This is what we're actually going to do. Is it's just going to be a series. The SmackDown is going to be me and Peter, and I'm going to defend the Americanisms, and Peter's going to defend the Britishisms.
How to pronounce Leicester?
Yeah, I mean, there's or Worcester or Worcestershire.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that'll be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. And excited about kind of who we're talking to about it as well. So
yeah,
should be good.
So yeah, cool. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching and joining us. Thank you if you've watched this along afterwards and have gone through this. Hopefully, the new stuff also sounds very exciting for you. And Peter and I will be back in at least 2 weeks' time to do some more building of a command line. And thank you very much again. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a like and remember to hit subscribe and to share with someone else you think might enjoy it. thank you once again, Peter, for joining me on this journey of madness.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thanks everyone for joining us from wherever you are in the world. Yeah, can't wait for next time.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. We'll see
Actually,
you on the
one
next
thing
one.
about next time, I am going to be at TDX, so we may need to figure out a plan. So stay tuned,
Yes.
everybody.
Stay tuned. The next one might not be in 2 weeks' time. It might be in 3, as I am in Cambridge next week. So yeah, we will figure something out though and let people know.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.